Christopher Hitchens, 10 minutes.
Well, I think I can say that it's a sort of a pleasure to be insulted by Mr. Galloway under any of my identities. And yes, it's true that I was an opponent of the last Gulf War. I don't know why anyone thought that to make such a point was a point against me. I dare say I might not have been invited here in this battle of the Titans if it wasn't tolerably well known that I think I was probably mistaken on that occasion. If you can assimilate a point as simple as that, ladies and gentlemen, which I dare say you can, for I shan't insult you, then I think you'll have to notice something about what Mr. Galloway just said and the rhetorical, I wouldn't say trick, I would say squalid maneuver that underlies it. To hear him speak, you would think, would you not, that he was a pacifist, that he defines himself as anti-war. Now, how can this be said in good conscience by someone who has just, standing by the side of the dictator of Syria on the 30th of July, referred to the 154 heroic operations conducted in Iraq by the so-called resistance, a resistance that's run, as we know, by a senior bin Ladenist and by many of the former secret police in the Ba'athist regime? How can someone say that they praise 154 operations a day? 145. I ask you. 145. He's coming down a bit.
That's what it says in your leaflet.
It's not that many.
It says 145 in your leaflet.
Let me remind you of what some of those operations were. The blowing up by military-grade explosives of the headquarters of the United Nations in Baghdad a few months after the intervention, as it was being tenanted by Sergio de Mello, one of the great international civil servants of our time, who was fresh from his role in the very belated supervision of the independence of East Timor from Indonesia and the holding of a free election in East Timor. And the jihadists who murdered him put out a communique saying, "We have today put an end to the life of this disgusting man because he freed Timor from Muslim Holy Land in Indonesia." These people are not pacifists, ladies and gentlemen, nor are they anti-imperialists. If you haven't noticed, they call for the restoration of a lost empire, the caliphate, and the imposition of Sharia law on all non-believers within its borders. That's not pacifism. That's not anti-imperialism. There comes a point, and I think it's come by now, where what people say is self-discrediting, requires no more comment from me. Some of this is funny, okay? Some of it simply shows that the people on the other side of this house are not serious. Of course it's funny that the authoress of the Vagina Monologues puts Mr. Galloway on the campaign trail with Jane Fonda. Who can't laugh at that? I know a number of women who can't wait, people who used to know Mr. Galloway, to hear a woman talk back to him in any way at all. But the seriousness of it can't be concealed. Now, among the people killed by these heroic operations in Iraq, some of them run from Syria and paid for by the human toothbrush and slobbering Dauphin Assad, Mr. Galloway's new pal. Among the victims of these operations was specialist Casey Sheehan, who was trying to clean up the festering slum of what had once been called Saddam City and was now known to us as Sada City, where the water supply is coming back on. It's taking a while because people keep blowing it up, but it's coming back on. Is it not rather revolting to appear in Damascus by the side of Assad and to praise the people who killed Casey Sheehan, and then to come to America and appeal to the emotions of his mother? I say sincerely, I didn't think it could get as low as that. And yes, I did criticize the luckless Mrs. Sheehan because she had made a very unfortunate political statement suggesting that she agreed with Mr. bin Laden that George Bush was the murderer of her son, which is not. The son, you exculpate the murderer, you exculpate the killers, right there. They didn't kill him. Shame on you. Shame on you for saying that. Now, she had made an unfortunate statement, which I called her on, and she denied having made it, which was a false claim. All of these claims, ladies and gentlemen, can be found to be false by a moment's checking. If you really believe the crazed fabrication of the figures of 100,000 deaths in Iraq, it's a simple matter to show this is politicized hack work of the worst kind. The statistics in that case have been conclusively and absolutely shown to be false. And I invite anyone to check it. Everything I say has at least 10 pages of documentation which I'm willing to share behind it. And you will have your chance to challenge me and pass questions to Amy. Now, I believe that that's really all I particularly need to say, except don't clap that fast. That's cruel. That's mean. Except to say this about the question of who's who in this war. Iraq is not being occupied by President Talabani. President Talabani was born there. He's had to move a few times. He's seen his villages destroyed and his home bombed and his family shot at and murdered and so on. He's not occupying Iraq. President Talabani is, in fact, the leader of the Patriotic Union of Kurdistan. So there are probably some people among you here who fancy yourself as having leftist revolutionary credentials. In fact, I can tell that you do from the zoo noises you make. And the scars you can demonstrate from your long underground twilight struggle against Dick Cheney. But while you're masturbating in that manner, the Iraqi secular left, the socialist and communist movements, the workers' movement, the trade unions are fighting for their lives against the most vicious and indiscriminate form of fascist violence that any country in the region has seen for a very long time. And the full intent of that was, and I'll say it directly, yes, in Fallujah, was to establish a Taliban regime and a safe house for Al-Qaeda. That's what we were facing. You think you could fight that without casualties? You're irresponsible. You're ahistorical. We take, on this side of the House, without conditions, we take our side with the struggle of the Iraqi democratic and secular left against fascism. We make no apology. Those who have betrayed their own party, Mr. Galloway had to be expelled from the great labor movement of which I'm myself still a member, because of advocating the shooting, publicly advocating jihad against British troops, now turns on the Iraqi left and wishes them well, and wishes and argues and hopes for their defeat by an onslaught which would make Afghanistan seem like a civilized country. What two positions can one take about this? I invite you to consider, ladies and gentlemen, and consider carefully, and thank you.
I wanted to see if we could get some windscreens on the microphones here. But failing that, if you could just lower your microphone, Mr. Galloway, so that you don't speak right into it. Great.